the end of the day, selling is transferring a feeling. If you don't have the feeling, you can't transfer it. If you don't have a good, positive feeling, dude, you're an actor. You have to sell and run your business from a place of positivity. And however you get there, God bless you. Welcome to the Primeau Show. It is episode 188. Why differentiation sucks these days with Roy Osing. Be different or be dead. And I cannot wait to get into it. But first, let's pay the bills really, really quickly. If you haven't bought my book, Sell a Million, what are you waiting for? 101 tips for furniture and mattress store owners to sell another $1 million or more this year. And if you invest in that book on Amazon, I think it's still under $15. Crazy. Call me at 419-560-3169. If you have any problems understanding a concept or you want help in implementing an idea that's in that book, just let me know. I'm happy to help you absolutely for free. I'd like to say thank you to Steve and Greg at the Mattress Industry Network Group. What a great group, guys. I think it's over 2,600 people now. It's a free Facebook group. If you are in the mattress industry, we want you in the group. So if you want to learn how to build, market, sell, and succeed in the mattress industry, this is the place for you. Hit that QR code, and I will join you in the group once or twice a week. And it's a great place to network. It's a great place to not be all alone in business and to meet other people with the same challenges that you have. Great place to learn faster and without as many scars, if you know what I mean. Also, I would like to tell you a little bit about the masterclass in Nashville, Ohio. If you want to increase your door swings, maximize your business performance, and become the kind of store that your community wants to shop at, this is the event for you. Join. Disregard that August 26th date. Scott Squared has extended the discounted rate all the way to Tuesday, September 3rd. So get with Wingo Coaching. .win by September 3rd and get your discounted rate. I went to the original masterclass. It was 2.5 day total immersion into the business. Basically walked out with the playbook that Scott uses for his store. He's among the most successful mattress retailers in the entire country. What we like to say is pound for pound, he is the most successful mattress retailer in the country. So without a further ado, let me welcome my guest, Roy. Welcome.
Hey, Pete. Thanks for having me, man. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for all you do. And thank you for being the voice of reason, sometimes in a very strange wilderness out there. I was rereading parts of your book today. And guys, if you haven't, am I echoing? Why am I echoing? I don't know why. I have not a clue. Chris, do we have any idea why I'm echoing?
You're not now.
Thank you, Roy. You're going to have a little work to do, Chris Stone. Anyway, what struck me as I was rereading parts of your book, Roy, is you are so pragmatic and such a contrarian, and I'm very much cut from the same cloth. And I'm just like, yes. So here's my question to you. I've been dying to ask you this for days. I had to fight the urge to call you and just ask you ahead of time. The title of the show, Why Differentiation Sucks These Days, by the guy that wrote the book, Be Different or Be Dead. Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, I guess it's because, in my view, it's simply a major problem. I mean, one of the things that we have to say here is that the reason differentiation is an important subject is because it's vital for growth. I mean, businesses generally can't grow if they're not meaningfully different from their competition. Hence, the title of my whole work is "Be Different or Be Dead." If you're not able to be different in a way that people care about, you're unlikely to be very successful. And so when I look around, the reason I'm saying it sucks is when I look around, in spite of the fact that customers have never been more powerful, that we've never had more aggressive competition, the technology has never been changing so fast. In spite of all of those dynamics, my conclusion is business today is pretty mediocre at explaining what makes them special relative to their competition. Hence the use of the phrase, "It sucks." It's not being done very well, in my humble opinion. I have a solution for that, which we'll talk about. But the interesting thing to me is it's simply not being done very well.
Yeah, I think, as you often do, you say things quickly and succinctly, and I think it gets lost sometimes. Meaningfully different. So there has to be a purpose that improves the experience of the consumer, that improves your business. To be different just to be different is an exercise in futility. To
Yeah,
be
I mean,
different, to gain a competitive advantage, to serve your customers better is a game changer.
yeah,
And it's really about, that's what your book is all about, from the time you hire someone to the, all the way through. There's so many gems in there that, I gotta tell you, we could spend the entire show about talking about just meaningfully different, but I think talking about what it's not for just a second wouldn't be a bad thing, because I see people on LinkedIn and Facebook and they say something and then you go, okay, catches my attention. And then they go a little deeper and then they've lost me. It was nothing. It was like literally a nothing burger. It did nothing to deliver additional value to the consumer experience or additional profits to the company, or even, and you talk about this in your book, Roy, a better experience for your people. I mean, we want them to have a great experience too, because it's the only way we're keeping them, right?
yeah, and look at it. It goes back to some fundamentals. Look at, the world is highly narcissistic at the moment. Okay, it really is. It's all about us. It's about the way we look. It's about how we feel. It's about the narratives that we pursue in an absolute way. And being different, okay, and having meaningful differentiation isn't about that. It's about being different in a way that other people care about. It's about being different in a way that blows people away. And so it's about serving people in a way that only you do. And that's the key. Look, at the reason differentiation today is an issue is basically three reasons I'll give you right now. Okay. First of all, there's way too much copying going on. I mean, we could easily make this why benchmarking sucks. In fact, I've written articles about this. There's way too much copying going on. People think they're being innovative by going to Google, and I call it gargling Google now, Pete. So if you want to find an idea, you gargle Google and claim that it's innovative, which quite frankly is intellectually dishonesty in my view. But you go there, you benchmark, you come up with an idea, and then you try and replicate it under the guise of innovation, which is absolutely inappropriate. So when you have copying going on, it's impossible to differentiate. All right, it's a game changer. It's a showstopper. You just can't do it. But that's only one of the three reasons that differentiation isn't being done very, very well. The second is what I call claptrap dominates. Claptrap. What do we mean by claptrap? Claptrap is the use of words like better, we're best, we're number one, we're the most trusted, we're the first ever, we're great tasting. All of these words, okay, that basically mean nothing. to the customer. They can't be proven. It's somebody's view as to what's better or what's best at most. And it's an expression of narcissism. It's what we think of ourselves, quite frankly. And so, unfortunately, the claptrap notion finds its way into most expressions of differentiation. We are the largest and most reliable 5G network in Canada. We offer the best coffee, and it goes on and on and on and on. And, I just look at this and go, okay, nice. I mean, that's your view of what you think you are. You better find out what your customers, and I call it cravings now, not needs. Needs aren't enough. We got to give people what they crave, because that space is price insensitive and there's no competition because nobody's doing it at the moment. Okay. So you got 2 out of the 3. The third thing is, look at people are just like floating in aspirations. Just think about how people look at what makes them different. We have companies who say things like, we're in business to save our home planet. Our mission, the reason that we're special, is we inspire humanity, both in the air and on the ground. Look at these may be important, statements inside, but to step out and actually use them as a reason for people to do business with them is nonsensical in my view. But everybody uses them. So they copy, they use claptrap, they use aspirations, and it leads to universal or unique selling propositions that mean nothing. Okay, it's just like vague claptrap out there. And the reason I get vexed about this, Pete, is that it's so important. If you want to grow your business, you need to be different in a way that people care about. You need to use differentiation as a growth tool. Okay, that's the only way you're going to grow, because at the end of the day, if you're the same as everybody else, you look at your top line to our conversation earlier, and it's going to suffer. And so it's exceedingly important. We need to move the yardsticks. The dial needs to move away from this common kind of herd thinking into what I'll talk about later, which is all about trying to be the only one that does what you do. Because that's the juice. The juice is in the only. It ain't in better, and it ain't in best.
There is no doubt. Only you is in your book many, many, many times. And it's almost like you're goading us. You're like pushing us along, like on this path. And one of the things that I loved was this whole, I don't think I've ever read an author who put it in the words that you put it. But basically, when you are lashing out against perfectionism and paralysis, all this, analysis, and never doing anything, and how to overcome that in your organization, and from the people that you hire to how you interact to how you coach people along, and what the expectations are all along the way. You're so contrarian to everybody. And there was this one thing, like, if you're 20% of there, go for it. Like you don't have to be 80% of the way there. Just start executing something. You learn as you go. And I love that. Learning, failing, learning again, failing in a better way, failing again, but learning every step of the way. I loved how you put that in your book.
Well, the genesis is basically we plan too much. We spend 80% of our time trying to improve the perfection of the plan, right? And we run out of time to figure out how we're gonna implement this puppy. Well, the first thing is perfection doesn't exist. It doesn't exist, and that's not because we're not smart. It's because the world won't let us be perfect. It keeps changing on us all the time. Shame on it. Shame on the environment. But guess what? Get over it, because that's the way it is. And so my view is you got to figure out a way to declare your journey, right, and march towards it in a world that's highly dynamic, unpredictable, and simply stochastic, okay, chaotic in that respect. And so be imperfect fast is actually, in my view, a strategic advantage. It goes to the people who are nimble, who move and shake, right, as the environment changes, who are willing to try and fail, learning as you go. I call it planning on the run. Execute first, plan second, right? All of that stuff. And the interesting thing, though, Pete, and you and I both know this, the world is stuck on study. They're stuck on pondering. They're stuck on fear, afraid to make a mistake. And that's probably because their leader has punished them in the past by making a mistake, and shame on them. Okay. But we need leaders that encourage trying, that encourage experimentation, because that's the only way we're going to get new ideas. That's the only way we're going to come up with gasp-worthy solutions for people, right? That blow them away and stay with us for 100 years and give us their money every month. Okay. But to actually stay with the tried and true, and unfortunately, I've not seen any evidence. We did not grow to $1 billion in annual sales by just hanging on to the past, hanging on to what everybody else was doing, believing that the textbook is the final answer. It's not. It's an important part of the answer, but it's not the final answer. It works in the real world, okay? And putting your own spin on it and twist on it. That's where we need to go. That's what the economy needs us. That's what society needs us to be. You said it earlier. I don't care about the color of your hair. I don't care about your pronouns. I don't care about your sexual preferences. All I care about is how you're meaningfully different to people and serves them in a way that nobody else can. Let's go there and imagine the world and what it would look like if we could get, I don't know, a 10% improvement over where we are today. Just imagine that, Pete.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be great?
It would be awesome. It would be awesome. So, Roy, by now, at this point in your life, you have to know that you're different, that you think differently than many, many executive leaders. You have to know that. Here's my question to you, because I'm not asking you that. I'm telling you, you know that. Which is maybe a bit unfair. So you can have at that too separately if you want to. But at some point in your life, you had to figure out, you know what? My classmates are saying X, Y, Z, but I'm saying, HGF. And I'm like saying different things and I'm thinking different things. Like, at what point did you know, like, your mind works differently? And in my view, because I think it works a lot like mine, I think it works better. But that's just me being bad.
Yeah.
But when did you know? Like, was it like in 5th grade? Was it like in high school? Was it in college? When did you figure this out? Like, my mind, I see a bigger world. I see, yeah. So I see dead people. No, you don't see dead people. You see a better way of doing things.
Well, I think the drive to actually sort of branch off and break away from momentum, etc. I actually think it came from my mother. She was a very, very strong woman. She was one of 12 siblings, and so she learned how to fight at the dinner table in the days where that was a challenge. She just learned how to survive, and she learned how to thrive. I don't have a litany of examples of the stuff that she did. What I do know is how she made me feel, and the fact that I sort of knew that to drive forward and get something done, you had to be prepared to step away. You had to be prepared to invite criticism. You had to be prepared to have a high tolerance for pain, but keep pushing and pushing. And that if you weren't prepared to do it, don't bitch about the fact nothing's getting done. And so it's kind of like at the end of the day, she would say, Roy, just do it. And don't complain to me that you didn't get it done. Just get out there and get it done. And so I think that's always been part of my DNA. And so when I matured and I left school and I was presented with practical issues in business, it was a natural go-to position for me to look around and seeing how everybody else did it and deciding that wasn't working Therefore, I'm going to express my natural instinct, which is to break away and be contrarian. I mean, quite often I would say, okay, if we did a 180 on this puppy, what would it look like? And now try and convince me that it wouldn't work. And let's at least give it a try. And don't use the logic set that you're dragging out of philosophy 101 or, economics 307 to explain it. Right? Let's just give it a whirl. And if it doesn't work, and there was a lot of stuff that didn't work, we never made the same mistake twice. And that's the key for everybody out there. If you're thinking about failing, that's okay, but never fail. And as a result of not having learned the first time, you just milk it for everything you can milk it for, and then use that to move on to phase 2 of failing. And maybe you won't, right? But you might. And you just got to keep moving. There's no silver bullets in this world, Pete. There's no magnanimous solutions that are promulgated by professorial thinking. Well, there's a good quote. I've never said that before. Thank you for dragging that out of me. Doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Small little mistakes, nano inches worth of progress. Be different, be different, be different. Always look, put your be different or be dead lenses on every morning and ask yourself, how am I going to be different today? What is the one thing I'm going to do differently, all right, in my life today? Be it at work, be it in your career, whatever, with your grandkids. Because I'm always doing that with grandkids. And it's just a way of thinking. But I think the genesis was my mother, and I thank her for that.
A lot of the things that I've got actually came from my mother. I'll never forget this as long as I live. It was the worst day of my life. She thought that I skipped school on purpose. She thought I was pretending to be sick. And I was. And it really sucked to get busted by your mom, right? So I couldn't have that. And she just said to me, putting her hands on her hips and calling me Peter. Whenever I was in trouble, I wasn't Pete anymore. I was Peter. When I was in really big trouble, I was Peter Allen Primeau. That's when you knew you had really messed up and you were in big trouble. But she put her hands on her hips and she said, I'm going to tell you something right now. I love you and I'll do anything for you, but I will never lie for you.
Boom.
Worst thing ever, best thing ever, right?
Yeah, I know. Well, you get the good, the bad, and the ugly. I mean, like you, my first name is Roy. It's one syllable. There's only one person in the world that would ever make that a 2-syllable word, and it would be my mother when she was really pissed at me, and it came out Rowy. Rowy. So whenever she said that, whoa, I knew it was coming. It was coming, man. It was, but the same deal, it's like, I don't like how you're behaving, but never, ever be confused with the fact that I love you, but don't behave like that. That's just, don't do that again. And so, but always encouraging, right, to try something, but afraid of it. Like it was almost like I could see that she's done this before, but she was afraid if I were going to do it. And that's the kind of like protectionistic views that mothers have. But I mean, at the end of the day, I found that there's so many people who are so uncomfortable with that whole approach. I mean, I used to do, I was going to say stand up for the MBA classes. That's not what I meant, but I used to do seminars with MBA students in their final years at the University of British Columbia. And of course, the whole premise of my discussion was, okay, now that you've learned something, there's a bunch of other stuff you need to learn. So put that stuff aside. Well, I was gradually asked to no longer appear because what I was saying was so contrary to what the management of the university was teaching these kids, that they felt uncomfortable having my message up there, along with the millennia of sort of professorial thinking that they were trying to jam down the throats of these kids. But that's kind of like a general sort of feeling as well when you run into audiences with this. I mean, talking to teachers, okay, about why they should treat their kids as customers and figure out what they crave and so forth. I mean, whoa, not ready for that message.
No.
Not ready for that. And so that's the challenge. And unfortunately, my assessment is that I'm really disappointed that it's taking so long, and it may never happen to make what I would say a quantum leap forward in sort of this whole notion. I just don't know. I just don't know, Pete.
Well, now I know exactly where that came from in your book, because you took a few jabs at professor type people who don't actually do anything, and there is a common theme in your book from the opening page to the last page. It's action, 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 and a correction and adaptation constantly. And I think that's why you were able to build a business from zero to $1 billion, Roy. I think that's why you're having the impact that you're having now in the business world, because you are giving them exactly what they need. The companies that are going out of business aren't going out of business because they took too much action. The companies that are going out of business today, right now, are going out of business because they didn't take enough action soon enough, because they were sitting there having a meeting about having a meeting about having another meeting. Sorry.
Yeah,
Didn't
I
mean to
mean,
rant.
that's so true. And I'll add one other dimension to this is, look at, we live in a tactically driven universe, okay, where it's easier to use AI, to use social media, to use CRM tactics that other people have proven in some way that they've been successful to them. It's easier to adopt a tactic than it is to take a step back, create and reaffirm your strategic context that describes your journey, and then decide which tactical approach is necessary. And so people will come to me and say, okay, I want an only statement. Can you help me build an only statement? Okay, when I start waxing on about Claptrap and so forth and this differentiation thing. And I say, no, I can't. What we need to do is we need to evolve the only out of a statement. I call it strategic game plan, which we've discussed before. I will help you evolve what you need to be different once we create a strategic context for you, because otherwise it's floating. It's like Tom Peters used to call a floating apex. It's floating and there's nothing below it to support it, right? You need a strategy to support it. And so I've had to create a process that drags people through this. It's amazing to me that it's easier to grab on and latch onto a tactic and implement it because it's cool, right? It's popular. I mean, I think unpopularity needs to be rewarded. Okay, I do. We need people breaking away from narratives, not buying into them, because all that does is inflate the herd, inflate the warmth and all the comfort level, which is quite frankly, not consistent with what you need to do to grow a business. And so tactics drive. And so without a framework, it's really difficult for people to do the right thing. And yet the irony is they don't want to do that. Okay, because it's harder work, but it's more meaningful work. It's like I did a little consulting gig with a boat company out of Toronto, and they called me up and said, Roy, we need to take our business to another level, right? So I said, what's the problem? Well, top line isn't growing enough. We need to really pump it up. I said, okay, as long as you just give me 48 hours, we'll come back, we'll do a strategic game plan, et cetera. And the first response was, oh, do we have to do that? Can't you just give me the answer? And I go, no, you have the answer. I'll just help get it for you. I will drag it out of your skull. Okay. I'll come. Goes back there. We came running into the only statement, which is all about defining what you're unique in a way that satisfies the cravings of your target customers. And the first answer I get is, well, we sell boats to boat dealers, Roy. We're not special at anything. And I go, well, hang on a sec. Let's take a deep dive into terms of what those boat dealers crave. After a long conversation, they decide that what the boat dealer really craves is the fact that they need to keep their business growing. It's got nothing to do with the efficacy of the boats. They expect the boats to float. They expect that the electronics will working. But what keeps them awake at night is the fact that their business will not continue to growth. And I said, well, okay, why don't we play into that? If that's a craving, why don't we reframe your strategy around satisfying that. And so we came up with this owner statement, which they just rocked them. I'll just read it to you.
Sure.
We'll call them Marine Co. is the only complete service partner committed to delivering solutions to grow a boat dealer's business. They're in the business development business now, Pete, not in the boat flogging business. And with that reframe, they went, that was the aha. But we never would have got to it without going through how big do you want to be? Who do you want to serve? Now we get down to how you're going to compete and win, which are elements of my strategic game planning process, which says we're going to differentiate by being the only ones who actually help a boat dealer grow their business. First thing they said was, how are we going to do that? That is the right question. Because then we started developing the skills and competencies that they had to adapt in order to do this. And so that completely kind of re-engineered and rethought their business. And it's an example of, I think, of a team of people who literally dragged themselves with a bit of help out of the tactical world into a strategic world that created onlyness for them. Let's call it onlyness. That's what you need to be. You have to be the only. It's your onlyness. You want people to say, hey, Pete, your onlyness. And when they say that, to you, you will go, boom, got it.
Yeah. And it's funny because that translates across industries. One of my oldest lines, protect the bed. We were the most expensive protector in the industry. We're the originator of the product. And when people started talking about, well, I can buy a protector for blah, blah, blah dollars less, we said, we're not talking about that. What we're talking about is right now, you're not in the protector business. We're talking about growing your protector business. And we know how to do that better than anybody else. If you want to grow your protector business and have a huge business, we're the guy for you. If you just want to sell a few protectors a month and just buy them cheap and sell them high, you can do that. But if you want a really, really big business, you really need to be with us. And we're going to show you how we're going to do that. Very similar to this. And the interesting thing is they resist us everybody resists about talking about the bigger picture, the strategy piece of it. And, sometimes we have to get that from our existing customers. Like we actually can't form it in our brain. So then we need to go, okay, let's talk to a few customers, find out why they buy from us. And after about 5 or 10 of these, it keeps repeating, right? The same story. And it wasn't even anything you were thinking about. And it's like, it was here, it was under my nose and I couldn't see it because I'm so close to it. I can't see the forest for the trees. Thank you, Roy.
Well, that's the key. That's the thing about taking a deep dive in Cravings. I mean, the whole point is once you figured out who you want to serve, I want you to dive as deep as you can. What keeps them up at night? What do they do? What makes them worry? What makes them elated? Blah, blah, blah. And then play into that space and be really focused. And that's the other thing. People aren't focused today. They're trying out, and maybe it's a function of the communications world we're in and the lack of strategy that they have. But they're one of the biggest mistakes I find, particularly in the small business space, is they're just not focused enough. I mean, Roy's rule of 3, focus, focus, focus. Give me 3 things that make sense relative to your journey and do them well. I hate to-do lists. Brainstorming sucks, quite frankly, because that's just introducing, the possible many. I'm not interested in the possible many. I'm interested in the critical few things it takes to achieve your strategic game plan, which, by the way, in my process starts out with numbers. It says, you want to grow top line by 50% in the next 24 months, or do you want to grow it by 10%? The reason we ask that question first is it makes a difference to the character and the risk profile of the strategy. Simple, easy peasy, right? And yet most strategy building processes deal with numbers at the end. What are the economic consequences of the strategy we just built? Oh, I don't like the number. Change the assumptions. What? And that's what happens. So I say, get the kids off the street. If you want to be 100 million, do you want to be 200 million? It makes a difference. And now let's start from there. And a lot of times the customers that they now have, you have to give up because they don't have the potential to deliver that revenue growth that you're trying to get. And that's hard. So we have a management strategy, right, around some of the existing customer groups, because we have to let them go. They're no longer relevant to our growth strategy. And then the differentiation piece, of course, flows from that. But I mean, look at 48 hours, dude. Easy peasy. And people don't believe it until we actually, and they go, oh my God, I can't do it. In fact, I got a strategy review session with one of my guys next week, and he's been executing this thing I try and do it about every 3 months. So he's been doing 3 months into it, and he says, I can't believe this. Completely changed his business. He says, how could we have done that in 48 hours? I said, all you needed was somebody to drag it out of you and give it form and substance. Okay, based on practical experience, not a textbook. That's all you needed. That's all you need.
Well, I love talking about that future growth that they're looking for up front, because you might have to look at them and say, all right, if you want to grow this fast, here's what you need to let go of. Do you have the stomach for this?
Totally.
Right? Because
yeah.
they may not.
Yeah.
And we might have to say, this 50% growth, you need, based on what you're willing to do, we might be able to get you 10 or 20, but we're not going to get you 50 because you're not willing to let go of enough. You just, I'm sorry, don't have the stomach for it. It's bad languaging. But I have a sneaking suspicion that some of the things that you say in coaching sessions, I would love to be a fly on the wall.
Well, I mean, I think part of it is capturing the imagination of these business leaders to actually believe that unimaginable growth is imaginable. Okay. Like I keep saying to them, look, if you're not perspiring during this conversation, then the numbers aren't big enough. Right. So if I even suspect that they're just throwing numbers up without having this soul behind it and this drive behind it, I just quit. I just stop and say, sorry, you have no intentions to do what you need to do to get there. So I'm not adding any value. Bye-bye. And so, I mean, part of my filter is, do I think this individual is kept up at night, loses sleep over the fact that they need to grow, and is willing to actually do whatever it takes? And so it starts there. This isn't a numbers game. It's really, you're declaring what you intend to achieve. Now, look, here's the deal. If you're sitting at $1 million revenue and you say, well, I want to go to 5 million, let's say, oh, no, I want to go to 20 million, right, in 2 years, because everything's based on 24 months. I don't do 5-year plans because the 4th year never shows up, and we all know that, right? It just doesn't. Welcome to the hockey stick universe. So 24 months, you want to go to 20 million, say. Have you failed if you try your best and you deliver 15 when you're sitting at 1? I say, no, you've been extremely successful. So that's the other piece of this, okay? It's just to drag and stretch people and their willingness, right, to be stretched, right, and to go into a sort of uncharted territories and do things that are unheard of. Are they willing to do that? I got a lot of time for people like that. And I think, with a bit of help, most of them will succeed, right? It's getting to them with kind of like a different narrative and convincing them that this is a journey that's, tough, but it's worth trying. Let me help you get there. And that's what I used to say to my team when I was running this internet company is look at, let's do this together. We're going on a journey. It's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be painful. It's going to be all the visceral things that you think it's going to be. But at the end of the day, you're going to get goosebumps. You will get goosebumps. And I got them right now, Pete.
That's awesome.
I did.
So this is a question I've been dying to ask you since last time. Every really good coach and consultant has the same exact philosophy. If I can't add value, I'm not taking your money. If I don't believe you're going to execute, I'm not pretending to go on a trip that's going nowhere other than your money into my bank account. I'm not doing this transaction. I don't need to do it. I'm not doing it. My morals, everything in me prevents me from doing that. That's consistent. But here's the question for you. My question is this: have you ever started to fire a client and have them completely flip and come back to you and say, no, you're not firing me, Roy. You're right. I haven't been doing what I should be doing. And as of right now, I'm recommitting. Have you ever had that or a similar type of experience? Maybe you actually fired them and then they come back to you a day or two later and like, hey, you fired me. And, I've been thinking about it and you were right about everything, Roy. And you know what? If you tell me to jump, I'm going to ask you how high. I'm going to do everything you tell me to do. Have you ever taken one back?
I've never had that situation, and I'll tell you why. And maybe it's just luck. I don't know. It's like I've had a lot of people say thanks, but no thanks up front.
Sure.
Right. So I try and spend as much time as I can up front on the due diligence around willingness to actually execute, believability in the kind of approach that I'm advocating. And what I find is most people will either say, yeah, I'm all in. And those people, no, I've never had anybody, I've never had to fire any of those. They've been more than willing to go on the journey. Or they'll simply say, nah, yes, I just can't do that for whatever reason. And so we don't start. And so I'm fortunate that when we get going, we're able to actually achieve what they want to achieve. And I think one of the reasons, Pete, is it's like a 2-day process, formal. Like you talk in some of these businesses and they say, well, as soon as you mention planning, of course, they go apoplectic. They don't want to plan, right? And I keep saying to them, look, you can't give me 48 hours out of your life to build your business. So I eventually beat them up. That's where I beat them up into agreeing that they can give me 2 days. And once they get through it, they kind of go, okay, I get it. I'm all in. That's going to do it. And so what I try and do is follow up and help them. We review, etc. But no, I've never run into a situation where they've just kind of like gone off the rails and I've had to say, hey, wait a minute. They've gone off the rails, but for legitimate reasons in terms of execution and marketplace changes and stuff like that. You can't criticize anybody for, we all go off the rails all the time, right? Yeah. The nice thing is you have somebody that can help you back. But it's really important to try and qualify the prospect, if you will, right up front. And I try and do that. And so far, it's worked out fairly well.
In my repping job, when I'm doing it the right way and I have the right customer, I'm coaching, I'm consulting. And I've often heard this. Why didn't I think of that?
Yeah.
And I'm like, you need to forgive yourself, dude, because you are so caught up in the minutia of every day executing. I am not in your business. I can see everything much more clearly than you can. Plus, I have an additional advantage. I go into hundreds of other businesses that I see doing it, sometimes similar, sometimes differently than you, sometimes less successfully than you, sometimes more successfully than you. And that's why we're talking, right? Do you find
Absolutely.
that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's just another set of eyes, but it's it's a cadre of experiences that you have as an advantage. Okay. The practical aspect of doing what we're doing is so critical. It's like everybody can talk formula, out of textbooks. Everybody can do that, but not everybody can talk about hiring for Goosebumps. I'm the only one that can talk about that. And if I can capture your imagination with the language, then I think I can get you. Right. Yeah. And you're right. People beat themselves up all the time unnecessarily. The good news is we have a solution that's relatively painless. If now we got to convince them to go with us, to allow us to make them successful. And quite often that's non-trivial. Most of the time, it's non-trivial.
Yeah. Yeah. When you present something that somebody's never thought of, they don't necessarily beat themselves up. They don't necessarily go, why didn't I think of that? But they just start staring off like into space. You've had this happen. I know you have. How do you help them through that? Because I'm not sure I've always done that correctly. And I'm trying to steal a little bit of coaching here. So if you need to send me a bill, Roy, you send me a bill after the show. Okay.
Well, look at, the proof point for me is always the achievement. Okay. I always go back. You need a proof point. Like, why should I listen to you? Roy, this hiring for Goosebumps thing, I've never read about that. I mean, how do you know it works? I mean, this killing dumb rules thing, which we've talked about before, how do you know that works? The answer they're looking for is kind of like a correlation analysis, right? That has, killing dumb rules as an independent variable and revenue as a dependent variable. That's what they want. Well, what I give them is anything but that. I go, look at, all I know is, right, the sum of the disruptive kind of like intervention related things that we did is we were able to take an early stage data company to $1 billion in annual sales. That's all I can tell you. That's the proof point. And so my suggestion is you always go back to performance and try and find a proof point around performance that you can use to explain it. If you get caught up in trying to explain things on a micro level, unless you have that readily available, for me, it's always been problematic because I've never spent any time trying to figure that out. All I knew was a collection of this stuff I know works. It lights people up. They perform better. They're more engaged. Execution goes up. How can that not be a good proof point? So that's where I always go. And it's amazing how many people refute the $1 billion as a proof point. They go, oh, but you don't have to, it's all, but show them that overall, performance is positively affected, in a material way by the sorts of things that we're doing. They're uncomfortable because they will typically, their point of reference is the textbook, right? Yeah. That's where they go. They think about, well, wait a minute, I didn't learn that in Economics 101. I didn't learn that in whatever, sociology 666. Therefore, Roy, you're hiring for Goosebumps thing can't be right because it's not been ordained in the textbook. So the only way to knock them off that is go to the performance thing and say, hey, look, you're a business leader. You want to grow your business. All I can tell you is a combination of all this stuff resulted in unbelievable performance with a group of turned on people who loved what they did, and our results just skyrocketed. That's all I can tell you. And if you're not a believer in that, well, we shouldn't be having this conversation.
Yeah, here's the thing about the Goosebumps thing. It's true. It's 100% true. I've never heard it, but I've experienced it. And every time I've experienced it and it was rare, that person was exceptional. Exceptional. And here's the crazy thing that a lot of people don't talk about. Do you want to go to work and do you want to have to continuously lay out the vision? Or do you want to go to work and somebody brings something to you and they've already made a decision and they're just letting you know what they did, which is giving you goosebumps yourself. And it's like, oh, you're just, we are so in sync because we were in sync at the beginning, right? The whole goosebump thing to me says we mesh, and we as a team need to mesh because what we can create together is greater than the independent things added up. When you get people working together, magic happens, but it doesn't happen if we're all going in different directions. So I'm a 1,000%. When I saw that, I'm like, he's right on the money.
We don't talk about passion and emotion as a strategic advantage. Reality is, where does action really come from? Do you think seriously it comes from the intellect? No, it does not. It comes from the heart and the soul. And so what we do as leaders is we try and stimulate that, right? And we try to be one with that. And when we do, and using look at humans love crazy things, right? We just do. We just love it when something, boom, hits us and it's articulated differently. Language is really important here. It's really important, okay? Because the crazier language and the more visceral the language is, people, boom, they notice, and we got to catch their attention. And the more we're like that, the more people buy in, because we're not talking down to them. We're talking up to them, right? We need you. We need you to help this journey become reality. Can you do that? Tell me what I can do to help you. I'll try and get rid of the dumb rules. I'll try and get rid of the crap that's preventing you from doing what you're doing. I'll try and improve the recruitment process so we actually hire people that love Homo sapiens. I'll try and do that. Right? Will that work? And all that kind of stuff. And they go, yeah, okay. Nobody's talked to me like that before. And I'll try not to get fired when I don't show up at a meeting that I got with the CEO, because I'm actually spending time on the front line, which has happened.
Roy, I got to tell you that one of the proudest moments of my life was about a week after I had a double back fusion. And so my wife runs my business with me, and she's an accountant by trade. And the first thing I said to her, if you're coming into my business and you're doing accounting, that's very important in our business. But we are a sales organization. We represent 6 different companies, and we don't have a single product that we sell that we own. We are at the mercy of our customers. We are 100% commission, and we live and die by our sales. And I thought, she was going to have a hard time getting that, but she didn't. So here it is. I had this mattress company that made their mattresses in Nashville, Tennessee, and we're up in Cleveland, and there's a snowstorm between Buffalo and Cleveland, and that's the last delivery. And our driver from Nashville refused to make the delivery because there was like 12 inches of snow, which I don't blame them. They're scared of the snow down there. So they left all the pieces. Jenny said, I'm going to pick them up and I'm going to deliver them to Buffalo. And so we went over to the other dealer. We picked up the 15 pieces, put it in our Sprinter van, and she delivered it in the snowstorm to Buffalo, New York. And I was just like, oh, I am so proud of her. Like, I tried to talk her out of it and I couldn't. It's like she had internalized who we were so much. And I'm like, to this day, there's nobody that does that. Nobody that does that. Nobody that's ever even come close to that. So, little proud moment. My Lord, what happened? Roy, can you believe this?
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
The last 10 minutes are always yours, brother. So here's what I want to ask you. Was there a question that I should have asked you that I didn't, that you want me to ask you?
I think the only piece that I would like to say around this notion of differentiation that we haven't really dug into, and that's fine, we can do this some other time, but there's a lot of resources on my website about this, is we talk about the only statement, the quest to be the only one that does what you do. You don't want to merely be the best of the best. You want to be the only one that does what you do. So I've created a process around this that people may want to check out because it will step you through how you do this. And it creates strategic context and then takes a deep dive into actually creating an only statement for your business. That's exceedingly important. It's not a matter of just creating a statement that you think. It needs to be rooted in your strategy. And sometimes we need to kind of like refine that because it may be stale, or maybe you just haven't looked at it for a while, or competitors have done something. And so check that out. And for heaven's sakes, if you want help, if you want more information on it, feel free to reach out. I'd be really pleased to help, Pete.
So how do people, what's the best way to get in touch with you, Roy?
Email is easiest, roy.osing@gmail.com. I'm happy to have a one-on-one. My website is up there now. I mean, I've been blogging on this stuff since 2009, so it's not new to me anymore. It keeps changing a bit as a function of the environmental changes, but the essentials are actually more important today than they've ever been. So you can check that out. My books are there as well. I'm trying to provide as much resource as possible. And in the final analysis, if you want on one-on-one, I'm happy to do that as well.
You know, one of the things that I ask my customers is, who challenges you? Like, do the other reps challenge you, or do they just say thank you for the order and there's no discussion? Most of the time, there's no discussion. And one of the things that happens to store owners, Roy, is they're kind of at the top of the food chain in their world, and their employees don't want to challenge them. Their vendors don't want to challenge them. And the only way that they can really get challenged is by somebody that does what you do. And so I would encourage all of my store owners to reach out to Roy at a bare minimum, buy the book. And don't stop there. Get a highlighter and a red pen, because my book is all marked up, and do everything you can do, and then call Roy and get some more technical advice. There might be an area or two where you guys can go deeper, and it could make the difference between your business thriving or actually going under. So everybody needs help. Everybody needs another set of eyes and another set of experiences. I often hear this, but you don't understand, Pete. My business is different. No, your business isn't different. You need to advertise. You need revenue. Your business executes all the business basics of every business. And it's really, are there particular nuances in your business? I am sure there are, but one thing doesn't change. You cannot get mired down into all the minutia of your business and still have the strategic viewpoint that you should to run your business. And I think that is where a consultant or a coach that has experience, who's built a business to over $1 billion and written a great book, can help expand what you're thinking about. And so I would encourage everybody out there to reach out to Roy.
Thanks, Pete. Appreciate that.
No, thank you, Roy. And thanks for being here. And I am so jealous of two things. Number one, those trees, and number two, the wine behind you. I'm sitting in here in Cleveland, Ohio, and you are in the great wilderness in Canada. And I am so happy. So guys, don't listen to me, listen to Roy, because he's the one doing it right. Thanks,
well, it's
Roy.
been fun. Thanks for the invitation, Pete.
No, my pleasure. Thank you, Roy. Have a great day.
You
Sell
too.
$1 million. And Roy.